welcome back to Foundation Paper Piecing Series 4. This is our second project of our 4th series, and as I think I say in every one of these videos, I have been surprised at how many people have absolutely fallen in love with foundation paper piecing. So if that's you, or maybe you've been a holdout or have a friend that's a holdout, we'll review the how does foundation paper piecing work, because if you already know how to do it, we can all agree it's not intuitive, but once you catch the rhythm, it's super fun. So this series, we've gone from the individual block, whereas in series 2, we had 4 motifs with a little sashing in between. In our 3rd series, there were 3 motifs, and we're back to the single motif, and notice the new display. Love that. Paisleys and polka dots. It's one of our favorite companies. Whenever we're doing a cross stitch and we want to be able to frame that, I'm always looking for a Paisleys and polka dot display. So I reached out to Julie. She's the incredible design force there, and said, would you build a beautiful display for Shabby? And so here it is. There's a dowel back here. You just slide out and be able to change this out. The hanging sleeves on the back. Isn't this adorable? And I've already filmed a video. It's a different craft display than this one, but the process is the same. They have perfectly laser cut all of these shapes out so that we can assemble them, spray it, done, and look how darling that is, right? I can totally see that at a workstation, maybe by an entryway table, or wherever that you just want to see that monthly display. So this month, of course, for Mother's Day, we have a beautiful flower for May, and we're excited about the beautiful colors. And we've done a little bit of beautiful batik in the back. And again, this is a combination of batik and beautiful cotton. Kits are the way to go. You already know that by now, because you'll not only get the same fabrics that you're seeing here, including your backing fabric, but you'll also get a tested pattern in full color. You'll also be getting your foundation papers. If you know how to do foundation paper piecing, you already know how valuable this is, because in a lot of foundation paper piecing books, there is nothing like this. You have to purchase Carol Doak foundation paper or another brand, and then go either take that to your home multifunction printer or go out somewhere in society and find someone to print this for you. We don't want to do that as makers. We want to be able to make. And the other thing, of course, is the stickers. We all know how important those are. So I'll just touch on that quickly, and we're going to dive right into this. What is the business about these stickers? Well, when you take your instruction sheet out and you clearly identify which fabric is which will be your first job, right? Is then you can see the very specific cuts. Before you even make your very first cut, I'd like to encourage you to add some sizing. Whatever that is, best press, any kind you have, press your fabric out good and flat. Make sure you have nice fresh blade in the rotary cutter, and then start cutting. With each cut here, notice this first cut, we have you cut a 3x6, and then we have you label that E1. Notice how the stickers are in the same sequence as you're cutting, right? Isn't that lovely? Get all of your fabrics cut and stickered until you have no more stickers left. Then get them in groups of A and B and C and D, because you can see these are alphanumerical. Looks like our highest letter is the letter F. So you'll have A, B, C, D, E, and F piles, right? And how that correlates to our paper is, notice on our papers, we have A and B and C. And so like you've seen us do before, and we'll be working on the section F together, you're always going to just kind of roughly cut out on your papers here, just so that you can separate them. In fact, we're working on the letter F, so I'll just show you how we kind of do that, right? I don't want to cut on that outermost line. Go ahead and save that for when we get to trim everything up, and we'll do that together today. So notice how I just roughly cut around that, because we're going to just work with one section at a time. So you can always cut your paper apart and put your fabrics with that in anticipation of the process that we're going to do right now. And with the very first piece of each section, so here F1, there D1, E1, you will use a glue, a little bit of glue, and it's going to be a glue pen or a glue stick, no liquid glue. Let's make sure we're not doing that. So here are my letter F fabrics, and notice they're in order. We want to always be working in sequence. So once you get your groups of fabrics, your A's, your B's, your C's, and so on, get them in order, A1, 2, all the way up to with the highest letter. And we can see here in our section F, we just have 3 pieces, right? So the process we're going to be reviewing today is the same process whether there's 3 shapes, 5 shapes, 7, 10, doesn't matter. You just repeat that. And that's what makes this actually very fun to do, is you catch the rhythm of how this works. Remembering that for our very first piece, it will always have a little bit of glue because we're going to have our letters and our numbers on the one side and our fabric is on the back side. And I want you to remember back to back. So what does that mean? The back of the fabric is going to go on the back of the paper. So our whole goal here is that when we put each and every shape down, that shape will not only cover the footprint of, in this case, F1, but at least 1/4 inch around. And you can see how nice and big this is. This is no problem, right? Definitely can see that you easily have that. And the first thing we'll do is to put just a little bit of glue down. So that's not going anywhere. Now we'll move on to our next step, which is the line between F1 and F2. And this is where we use one of the most important notions in foundation paper piecing called an add a quarter plus. In fact, I taught this recently in the Shabby Fabrics showroom, and a customer came in and she said, someone let me use their add a quarter, and she had a terrible time with it because the add a quarter plus has the tapered edge. The original version had an abrupt kind of edge like this, making it much more difficult to fold over in the exact location. But I love how the add a quarter plus makes this so easy. Now, they come as a 2-pack. You can buy them individually, the 6 or the 12 inch, or the 2-pack in the yellow or pink. For the projects, once you catch this, you're gonna wanna do a lot of foundation paper piecing projects. Just grab the 2-pack. That way, when you have a longer angle for a bigger project, you have that longer 12 inch. So I'd like to encourage you to just grab the 2-pack, because I already know you're gonna fall in love with this once you catch the rhythm. With the tapered edge of the add a quarter, we'll lay that just to the left, just a little bit to the left, and our goal will be to fold very succinctly over the add a quarter on that tapered edge so that we get a nice clean fold directly on that line. So I take a look and make sure I didn't miss it. I like where that position is. Now, half of the job of the add a quarter has been done. Now let's rotate that 180 degrees and look how there's this lip. That is the other incredible part of this product. Look at that. How I can lock that in, and I literally slide that up and down to make sure that's locked in, and let's give a cut. So this is already beginning a process called trim, sew, and press. So you and I both know as makers, as quilters, if we want to sew 2 fabrics together, we know that we need to have our fabrics right side together. This happens to be batik, so there kind of is no right or wrong side. I'm going to press that out a little bit more. There is no right or wrong side, but if there were, we would be placing right side together. And our goal here is to make sure that once this is sewn and we flip that what have we done? We've covered all of F2 and 1/4 inch all the way around. So I like to flip that and look at it. Now I can see, without needing the light pad yet, that I definitely have that in position. Once you're like, that's a good spot. I definitely have what I'm looking for. We'll just hold that in position with our fingers, flip this over. I put a pin in here so nothing's moving. Now let's talk about, we're going to sew on a shortened stitch length of a 1.5. Anytime you're sewing on any type of paper where you'll be removing it later, always bring your stitch length back. The default on a BERNINA is a 2.5. We're going to bring that back to a 1.5 millimeter. And depending on your machine, if you don't have that exact measurement, doesn't maybe measure that way, something much shorter, right? The whole goal is to add a lot more thread in a given distance. I also love to sew with my Microtech size 70-10. This is a finer needle. Remember that the lower the number when it comes to needles, the finer the needle. It's just the opposite in thread, but let's not worry about that. For now, the lower the number in the needle, the finer that needle is. This is extremely sharp. It's not a deal breaker. This you have to have. This is just nice to have for the needles, but I always like to show you what I use. Okay, we'll be starting right off of our paper, right off the edge, sewing directly on the line and sewing right off. Okay, let's get started. So this is the S of Trim, Sew, Press, TSP. Okay, we've trimmed, we sewed, and now we press. Options, you always, of course, your iron, right? But we are literally just getting ready to go to quilt retreat. We know what that means. 4 makers with 1 table with 1 ironing board. Hey, I know a lot of makers want to be able to just sew without having to get up and press and up and press. So the Clover Roll and Press is an incredible option for this. Check how flat this will become with the Clover Roll and Press, right? I'll show you what this looks like with an iron. It's a little bit flatter, but not by much. I've always been amazed at how does this do this? I don't know, but it's real. Okay, so let's repeat that. So the line that's next between F1 and F3 is where we will repeat those steps. Add the tapered edge of the add a quarter, fold our paper back, the nice crisp fold. I'm going to fold that a little bit better than I did. Fold that again. I like that fold. Rotate this around, lock that in, make a trim. Next fabric. Now you could always save these stickers, by the way, if you felt you wanted to. We just love, customers love the stickers. We hear of that so often. So let's just assume that I had my fabric here and I flipped it. And I'm like, well, I want to have better coverage. You can always just move your fabric, right? And that's, let's say that you put it there for some reason. This is why we like to look, because I've definitely had it in the wrong position. The light pad is here because sometimes it's not as obvious. It's very difficult to tell. And I definitely use that quite a bit in our first video. So I have some shapes here where that definitely works. They're very generous with the shapes here. That works. All right, we'll pin. Now let's look again. Edge to edge. I love that. This one's so easy. Love it. Okay, so trim, sew, press. You've seen 2 round trips of that. And that's how you just keep going. That's it. That's how you keep going. Now, this is a brief overview. For the full longer version, just go back to last month's video. It's a much longer video, where we go into many more pieces, many more round trips of TSP. And you can see sometimes where, depending on where you're sewing, for example, here, this line between the 2, I can't just go edge to edge. Here I have to be very careful where I begin. I have to be very careful where I end. So be sure to check out that video if you're brand new to foundation paper piecing, because that was a pretty quick review. Our next step, once you have all of the shapes sewn down, is you see that thin outermost line. This is where you begin to trim up the shape. That's what it looks like right now, right? You're like, what is that? Well, let's trim that up exactly on that outermost line. Any little extra notching like we have here is definitely for a reason, so that all of the sections of the flower click together like a puzzle. I love that. And that's what people, when I did that foundation paper piecing tutorial in the showroom, I asked people, what is your favorite thing? For those that already knew how, they all said the same, precision. This is precision, right? I'm not doing an intricate quilt block where I have to be intently focusing on that pattern, checking measurements all along the way. That's what's very satisfying about this, besides the beauty of the blocks that it can make. Once you have got your fabrics cut out and labeled, you know what you're doing. And isn't that fun? I just think very relaxing. So that's what it looks like now. So let's bring out the other shapes that we've done. We've already done, see how we had our letter A, and we had our letter B, and we had our letter C. So as you can see, once we sew sections together, we tend to remove the paper in the seam allowance, but we leave the rest of the papers on. So we have our A, B, C. So we have this here. We have this section right here. And notice why we don't want to take off those papers. Look what it's telling us. This side joins to the DE unit. So if the paper was still on here, it would say this side joins to the D. This would say this side joins to the E. But let's follow the guidance, right? It's telling us, this says this side joins to F. It's your roadmap. It's telling you what to do. You don't have to refer back to the pattern. You don't have to guess. So let's see how this will click together. I love it. It's very satisfying how precise it is. Your job here is to stack those two pieces exactly top to bottom, pin so nothing is moving, and pin here. Don't pin out here where you have to remove the pins as you go. I want you pinning on the inside like I'm pinning right now. So those pins will absolutely stay in position. Of course, we're going to continue sewing on our shortened stitch length. I got that question a lot. When we start joining sections, should we be at a regular stitch length? No. If paper is still involved, you're going to stay on that shortened stitch length the whole time. I'll start right off the edge, right on this line, and sew right off. Let me take you to where we are in our pattern so you can see we've included instructions as well, so that whenever you see those arrows, that's letting you know which direction to press that. So in this case, once we warm up our seam, it's letting us know to go ahead and press that seam open. This is a great time to use a clapper, by the way. I love using clappers, and you know what I might do before I even press that open is let's just take that paper right now before we even fold that, right? It'll make it a lot easier to press that seam open if that paper isn't trying to prevent us from doing so. Okay, we'll warm that up one more time. And we'll press that seam open. Yeah, good option for a clapper for sure. A clapper, if you've not heard of a clapper, what a clapper does is it's got weight. It's wood. It's just got an incredible density of weight. I don't know if they're maple or what kind of wood they are, but the whole goal is to put that on there so that it is absorbing the heat and flattening that seam so everything is just as flat as can be. Okay, so now we have this section. Now our job is to sew the upper portion to the lower portion. So let's do that next. Once again, look at that, how that just, it's undeniable. Absolutely incredible how, you know, when I do patchwork, you hope your blocks come out, right? You hope that you've gotten precise cutting, precise pressing, precise quarter of an inch. There's a variability to that. With foundation, there is not. With foundation, it is just perfect every time, and that is absolutely what I love, obviously, about it, and what so many people speak about and why it's very satisfying and beginner friendly. You don't have to have a lot of experience to be able to be getting blocks look just like mine. All right, same story. Straight off here, straight on that line and off the edge, and we'll be having our block put together. So let's see our block. Look at that. Is that incredible? And of course we would be removing the paper, but just, and let's see, that whole seam here, I'm sure it's going to be pressing that open. Yes, I'm sure that will be to distribute that bulk, but let's look at that. Just look at the precision, right? It's incredible. I'll just press A direction right now so we can see our block. Now you can see that we also added our borders. Now, remember that the block is still helping you. You could be adding your border here, and on this side, that's your 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I would recommend don't even take off the papers now. Go ahead and add those side borders on first. Figure out where your yep, that's the top, okay? I would be doing the side borders first. And yes, it's a narrow strip and you may be tempted to sew from this side. Don't. Then you have to find the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Go ahead and have that border, but flip it to this side, pin from this side, sew on those 1/4 inch seam allowances, and of course you'll be following the instructions, pressing away from that block. And you'll be doing the same with the top and bottom border. What we love to do, and you can see there's a 3-piece thread set, is once you have your borders on, okay, you can finally take off those papers. We know you want to do that. Very satisfying. Any little nooks and crannies that I can't get with my fingers, things like in these corners that drive me crazy. This is the Gypsy Quilter tweezers. They're invaluable. I love these. Keep them away from kiddos. They're extremely sharp. And then once you have all your paper removed, this is where we love to add the Kelly Dell fusible fleece. This is our favorite. This is what we've been using. I love just adhering that to my block. On the back of that, I smear the back of my project with 505. You could use a basting spray. Remember that your backing will be pretty side down. So you have your quilt sandwich. This is when we use the thread set. We're going to get in close. The only stitching in the ditch we even do at all is actually the binding. The rest of it, we're celebrating. we're stitching exactly where you can see. See that right there? Why not accentuate that? It looks so beautifully embossed. We rarely, as patchwork people, when we're doing patchwork, we sew with white, gray, black. Boring. How nice to be able to sew with colorful thread. You can keep the same color in the bobbin to match your backing fabric. So you're only having to do the top thread is switching out, and you can see how beautiful it is stitched around. So we're absolutely having a blast. We've already designed next month. You don't want to miss out. If you have been waiting or holding out, not subscribing, like I'm not going to subscribe to one more thing, do it today. You'll be glad you did, and bring your friends with you. This is the place for inspiration, education, and so much fun. I look forward to seeing you next month as we continue Foundation Paper Piecing Series 4.